Hello, thank you for joining today's presentation, QTP/UFT versus Selenium, sponsored by Sauce Labs. Before we get started, I want to cover a few things. You have the ability to ask questions during the presentation. Use the Q&A box within the WebEx panel. At the end of the presentation, we'll do a Q&A session and take as many questions as we have time for to our panelists. We are recording this session and we'll be emailing it out to all registrants after the webinar along with the slides, so take a look out for that. With that, let's go ahead and get started with our featured presenter, Tarun Lawani.
Hello, I hope you can all hear me clearly. Morning, noon, and evening to all of you. I know people would have joined from different time zones. I'll be taking next 60 minutes of your life, and I hope I'll be able to do justice to that. Before I start the webinar, I would like to thank us for providing me an opportunity to present in front of all of you guys, and hope we'll have a great webinar today. Introduction about so we specialize in implementing test automation using QTP and Selenium. I have expertise in QTP to Selenium migration. Other services that we do are around data scraping, crawling, automation using different APIs, and we do custom automation for manual process that you may have. I'd like to give you a brief background about myself. I have been a QTP expert for close to 8-9 years, and I've written 3 of the best-selling books for QTP, and I have close to 12+ years of experience in testing automation. Of the directors at Sauce Labs, and my blog is knowledgeinbox.com, where I used to mostly blog about Qt earlier. Different softwares, free softwares that have been shared with the community over there. So, on to the agenda of this presentation. So I just wanted to set the context at this point. We're looking at a brief introduction of QTP and Selenium. They will be going through differences between QTP and Selenium, and then being about where we should look at a migration to Selenium or not, and what benefits we can expect from such a migration, and what are the challenges you would actually face. At the end, we'll have Q&A, so there are questions that were already sent to us during the registration of this webinar. So we have picked a few, and we'll answer those in a pre-webinar Q&A, and then we'll some of the Q&A that you will be posting today. If there are any questions that we are not able to take up today in this particular webinar, we can always take them offline. You can always send it to them @saucelab.com, and in case it's related to Sauce, they will answer it. In case it is something related to QTP or Selenium, they can always it on to me, and I'll be one answering that. Now, to set another context right for this webinar, I want to make sure that this is not a Selenium promotion kind of a webinar where we are trying to promote Selenium over QTP, or we are trying to say that QTP is something that you should not use. We are just trying to give you a comparison between the two tools, and we are more going to talk about how Selenium could actually be of help for it to QTP. So it does not exactly mean that that QTP is not a tool that you should be using, but in which situation you could actually use Selenium. So start with QTP is a GUI based automation tool. The latest version of QTP being UFT. That is a GUI plus non-GUI automation tool, which means you can test your web services and other things also with the same tool. QTP earlier developed by Mercury Israel, which was actually acquired by HP in 2006. And the tool became actually HP QTP instead of Mercury QTP. So the full form earlier was Quick Test Professional. Now it is also known as Unified Functional Testing. Still popular with QTP as the name instead of UFT. So it's a desktop-based testing application which works on Windows. Now, what Selenium is. Selenium is a web browser automation API. As you can see that I mention it as an API, not as a tool. So QTP itself is a tool wherein you write automation scripts within that tool. Selenium is a API which you have to consume in one of the languages that it supports. So there's a huge difference in terms of the way these two tools are. Basically, with Selenium, you don't get any kind of a UI or anything. You are getting set of client APIs that you can use to automation of the browser. And you have to use a programming language to actually work with it. Programming language in case of QTP also, but QTP you are controlling QTP itself to perform the actions, wherein in case Selenium you use a language to actually communicate with the Selenium server and send the commands. Project that has been running for long, and as of now it's on GitHub. You can look at the source code. There are close to 108 plus contributors to this project. It has become one of the most preferred choice for web and mobile automation, and that is the reason we are having this webinar today. Because a lot of new projects, a lot of companies have started to realize value in implementing Selenium as a preferred choice for their web automation. Looking at some of the differences between the two tools. Starting with what are the kind of technologies you can test with QTP versus Selenium. So as you can see, the slide is actually heavily loaded towards QTP. QTP supports a huge variety of technologies ranging from Cbl, ActiveX, Visual Basic, Windows, SAP, terminal-based applications. Then the WPF, Java is something that's missing here. So you can see in terms of technology stack, they support the stack that's mostly available, and that's why it's been the most popular tool for automation earlier. But in the recent years, the number of automation projects, or rather number of projects for web and mobile, increased a lot compared to what desktop-based application or web applicants for the computers have. So that's why Selenium has picked up, even though it is only supporting the web technologies right now. Look at the operating systems that are supported by these two things. So QTP is again dominatingly on Windows. It supports most of the latest Windows operating system which are active. Whereas Selenium, you can actually run it on any operating system. You can run the Windows system, the Mac OS systems, and any flavor of Linux, be it Ubuntu, and you can also run it on devices like Raspberry Pi. So that's a very huge advantage of things like Selenium. Coming to the languages that are supported by these tools, is still using VB script, which is a language which is not no more supported by Microsoft. So Microsoft has already ended the support for VB script, and that is the language that is being used in QTP. In UFT, the API testing actually uses that is not available to you for the GUI testing as such. If we look at Selenium, the number of languages that are supported by Selenium is quite large. Most of the languages, some of the languages binding are actually directly supported by the Selenium team, and there are like for our language, the Erlang bindings, which are actually supported by other people on open source platforms like GitHub. The application language that people are quite familiar with when working with Selenium is being things, the core Selenium server that was written completely in Java. That's why most of the recent or latest developments comes into the Java binding first and migrated down to the Python version or other languages. PHP 1 is actually maintained by Facebook, and Python 1 is maintained by Selenium team itself. Even the .NET 1 is maintained by Selenium. So as you see, there are a lot of languages that you can choose from compared to just VB script, which is a very simple language as such, easy to learn. But when you look at the power of the language, it's very limited. So VB let you do a lot of things wherein you might have to end up writing sharp and then call that in VB script, which defies the purpose of keeping things simple. So next comes the browser support. So we added support for browser on Mac. This was, I think, a year back or so, max. And then to support IE and Firefox, and Chrome versions were again supported within the last 1 or 2 years. Look at Selenium. There are a lot of browsers they have supported from the start, and they have been more current in terms of supporting the latest versions compared to what HP has been. Though HP is kind of catching up on that, and they are releasing patches faster for the latest version on the browsers. It is something where Selenium has been better till now, and the only thing is where I see things could not be at pace as QTP would be the support for IE. Less browsers which are also supported by Selenium, which is Phantom.js, which is another kit browser. It is taken from Chrome, and it's a browser without any GUI. What that does is basically it helps you execute your test without any GUI, but you can still take screenshots of what is happening. So that your test runs faster because there is less GPU processing, or rather there is no GPU processing at all, and it is able to execute in a terminal environment also, compared to having to require any kind of X11 graphics or things. And then using Selendroid and iOS driver, you can actually test Safari on iOS and Android Chrome as well through this. But now there is another project called Appium, which is again source initiative from Selenium, that is actually being used to test on simulators, and it can test the native applications also. Selenium can only do the browser part, but Appium can help you out testing the native applications as well, or even the hybrid one. Next important comparison that wanted to look at was cloud execution. So how exactly can we distribute our test to different remote machines? Now, QTP is designed, and the way Selenium is designed is totally different. So QTP was designed as a desktop application. It can be used to test the same machine itself. So if you are in a QTP script, then the QTP script has to be opened on a machine, and the application which is supposed to be tested also has to be on the same machine. On the other hand, developed in such a way that you can run your code on one of the machines, or your test script can run on one machine, and your browser could be in one of the remote machines. Because of its nature, can only run one test per machine, whereas Selenium we can run multiple and simultaneous tests on the machine. Being a Windows-based VM or like a Windows tool, the VMs, if you're trying to set up a lab for execution, the VMs are much more costlier in nature compared to Linux, because you can smaller VMs compared to what you would require in case of building a Windows machine. The setup time or the maintenance type you compare, if there is any patch that needs to be installed, you need to get it installed on all the machines, and that would have its own time, whereas doing that for a Selenium would be as good as replacing a jar file, and you'll have the latest version with you. And there are no actual enterprise level cloud testing providers available to you when you are doing QTP execution, which means you have to host your own QTP lab. Where in case of Selenium, there are a lot of options you have, and Sauce Labs being one of them. Difference in Selenium is that Selenium would allow you to execute multiple browsers on a single machine, which means you can test Firefox on a same machine, and I can test 5 or 10 Chrome also parallelly with that, and they will not interfere with each other, because Chrome and Firefox, they do support profiles, which means they can run in their own independent profiles without altering cookies for each other, and that work makes it possible to execute multiple test cases and create a cloud ready to execute more number of test cases compared to what we would be able to achieve with QTP. We'll look at another factor, that's the license cost. So when I'm talking about the license cost, I'm not only talking about from a perspective of I'm also talking from a perspective of the work that is being used. With UFT, they have a framework called business process testing, which is another integrated framework with their HP ALM or quality center that used to be earlier. This is people who use PT. It's a quite easy to use framework with drag and drop stuff, but end up being engaged in multiple licenses cost from ALM, business process, and PT. So cost of the licenses actually increase. On Selenium, you have a lot of things which are free. The Selenium language itself is open source. All the bindings are open source. And then there are a lot of frameworks. Most of the unit testing frameworks are actually supported. So you can build your own frameworks over that on top of those, which gives you different runners. So for .NET languages, you have NUnit. For you have JUnit. So there are a lot of mature frameworks of unit testing which can be directly applied for testing or automation in case of Selenium. So again, people may say that this 100% free is there, but you had cost of building the framework or things that QTP might already be providing. That's true, but let's say in case you are taking less number of licenses, it may not make a huge difference. But when you are running enterprise level, let's say 100 nodes of QTP, the number of licenses that you are buying, the cost is also going to increase, which means looking at Selenium as an option is even more beneficial. So then it's not simply we can judge it based on the license cost. That's why we are presenting multiple factors that come in, and we'll discuss few things during the Q&A also, and I'll be mentioning few other points in the upcoming slides as well. Now to present some data of trends. These are real numbers. So the first graph, if you look at is the percentage of jobs that are posted Indeed for or they have found for Selenium and QTP. You can see somewhere between 2011 and 12. QTP started to take a dip on the number of jobs that were being posted. And at the same time, Selenium started to take a jump. And if you look at the difference between the two graphs, it is substantial as of now. The lower one, which shows the percentage growth, though what it was is that QTP percentage growth has been quite stable, but when at Selenium, it has really caught up. So it has really grown the number of percentage-wise, the number of jobs grown higher compared to what QTP did. I also wanted to look at what exactly are people looking at. So I went on Google Trends. I started doing comparison, and first graph shows that there are a lot of people who are actually searching on Selenium. Now there will be different ways we interpret this. I could say that maybe people are searching for Selenium because there are a lot of issues with Selenium. So maybe, there are people searching for Selenium because there are a lot of people interested in Selenium, or there could be people who are actually there are a lot of people posting about Selenium, or the less knowledge in people regarding Selenium. That's why people are more turning to Google, and QTP more stabilized, and people already know about things, and things are much easier. If we look at the YouTube search, which is not primarily for problems, which is more for learning things, so would see that find the results from both the graphs, the trend does definitely show that people are more interested in Selenium, and there are a lot of people who are actually learning Selenium now, and there are a lot more people with that particular skill available in the market. What exactly should I migrate to Selenium? That is the question. So people who are actually beginning already do not have an automation suite. For them, it is quite easier to still choose from. They can make the comparisons cost-wise. What are they looking at? But people who have already spent some investment on QTP, they should be looking at migrating to QTP. And so QTP, as I said, was designed as a desktop application. It can run only one test on a machine, which means your hardware investment is there. It means there are a lot of machines you manage yourself. There is no tool that is available which would actually manage your nodes, keep them secure, keep them with the latest versions of QTP, deploy patches. So you will have to work out on your own solutions. Whereas Selenium is more already. Selenium team itself distributes the that you can set up on your own network, or if you are looking at an enterprise level grid, you can always get Sauce Labs as the option, and they do take care of a lot of things in terms of security, destroying the VMs as soon as the test is over, which means your data is as soon as the test is completed, which means you do not have to worry about leaking any important information about the test data or anything related to your application. As we saw that because of the design, same hardware can generate a lot more execution power in Selenium compared to what we could do in QTP. I'll be showcasing a case study of one of the migrations that we had done for a client. There you will see how exactly this has made a huge difference. Now, Selenium supports a lot more browser and a lot of languages. And Selenium is actually now becoming a W3 standard. What that means is most of the it will become a standard, which means most of the browser vendors would be developing their own Selenium drivers, which means Selenium itself as a project would just interact with these drivers, and these companies would actually develop their own driver. So 11, Microsoft has started doing that with IE11. Was already doing that, and Firefox also has started doing that with a project called Marinette for driver for Firefox. So you see that becoming more popular. Browser vendors themselves are trying to adapt it as a standard. In future, we have drivers which are actually directly supported by vendors, and there will be quite less issues compared to what we see in today's date that the team has to work on when there is a new update. Because when there is an update from the browser vendor, they will ship the update to the driver also. this will be happening mostly this year, where we would start seeing better drivers from better issues with Selenium when coming to the X. Now, choice of so many languages, it makes it easy to integrate into your development environment. So let's say you're developing a solution using PHP, you can directly use PHP Facebook driver and integrate stuff within your test cases and execute things that may not be directly available through the UI, and use your internal classes to do the testing. So things get much more flexible, much more powerful when you are integrating within your own environment also. Do we recommend to plan a migration? We don't say that if you're automating 6,000 tests with QTP, you should just quickly go and start migrating them. And you always start with a single script. Do a proof of concept. Don't use any kind of framework. You don't need to prove how exactly things work, but you want to test a plain script that you have created in QTP and see how it is doing in Selenium. Kind of issues you are facing, how is it different in terms of speed, in terms of load times, and other things. And try adding few more scripts and repeat the same exercise and see is it worth doing this migration or not. Pushing any kind of a framework at the start, you are more looking at substantial numbers in terms of the difference. Don't try and migrate your existing code approach. See, VB script, the way people design things in VB script is completely different from the way it actually get designed in a language like Java or Python or PHP for that case. So you want to take your programming approach of or an approach directly from QTP to this language you choose for Selenium. You should look at how actually people do testing when using Java, how people do testing when they are using Python. So that is one of the key things that you should look at also. So let us look at some of the benefits we can get. So one of the benefits that can come is you can always move some part of your testing from the QA team to the development team also, because there are a lot of companies which are making Selenium also as one of the parts of the unit testing, though again it's not testing the code that's being written directly, but developer being made responsible to create test cases for the functional testing also. And there are a lot of places where the development team and the QA team are going hand in hand and creating these. The integration with most of the continuous integration systems that are there. You have Jenkins or Hudson, and you have Circle CI, and you have a lot of things which are actually you can integrate with these things. It's not as easy to do with QTP because it's not something that was built to integrate with the CI tools. Languages, as we said, it makes it easy to integrate with your language. Then you do have more control over the framework that you'll be designing. In case you have certain requirements which you see would be better said in a language, you can go for that language and create your framework in that. Then easy to scale using Grid and Cloud. You just change a small the way you initiate your browser, and you can go into Grid. Execution is faster. When I say execution is faster, it's not that the browser execution is actually faster, but it's that QTP, which gets executed through QC, you have substantial lags of start and stop. So let's say it takes 20 seconds to load script in QTP, start it, and during the end, it awaits, let's say, 10 seconds. So now it's a wastage of 30 seconds. And multiply that by 6,000 test cases, so you might be wasting a huge amount of time, which is close to 3 minutes and turns up to be 50 hours. So you are moving to a framework within a language that is directly gained, not just in the execution speed of the browser. I'm saying just by using the tool, and QTP has not been a very fast performing tool in terms of the startup and the load times. So there are times where if you actually monitor your execution of huge number of test cases, you will see that there are 2 seconds, and this could ranging from 10 to 30 seconds, and times even a minute. So that does delay a lot of execution in terms of when you have bigger suits. A lot of unit testing frameworks that are readily available to you. The unit testing frameworks pioneered over these languages for years. So they provide you with a lot of flexibility in terms of driven testing and choosing what test to run, what not to run. Though you do not get a UI like you do in Quality Center, wherein you select multiple number of tests. So it definitely lacks the UI part, but that can be easily developed. Then wanted to talk about few challenges. IE again is a challenge with Selenium compared to QTP, wherein IE is the best browser that they support as a part of QTP. Most things work quite well in IE in QTP compared to what in Selenium. There are things that might work in Firefox and Chrome may not work in IE. Then people like me who come from a background of QTP, there are tools which are not there, data table, object repository. There are not concepts of object repository, but things like page object factory that we'll use in Selenium. But it's a very easy to use tool in case of QTP, wherein you just do a click and the object gets added. Whereas in Selenium, you'll have to inspect, you have to learn using the web developer tools to do that. In Selenium, the basic Selenium bindings do not differentiate between a button or a web edit or a button or table. So there are no element types in that, which means even if I have to get some data from a cell in a table, I have to write code for that. In QTP, I might write just get cell data, give it the row number and column number. Whereas in Selenium, I'll have to maybe write an XPath or use JavaScript to get that data out. So there is less boilerplate code that is available. That means there is higher development in the initial few months when you start using QTP, because there are a lot of things that are not there. But once you have created this set of reusable libraries, you can easily reuse them and do a lot more compared to what. So you can take it to a level of QTP. Again, you may not have that drag drop stuff that you get with BPT, but still you can customize your framework a lot. So I'd like to share a small case study with you for, this is an actual case study for IPCM client. They are a company which has a portal for hospital management. And the way we started is we had developed their suite in QTP for a long time. Small proof of concept for the migration. And that simple test case, which was taking 4.5 minutes in QTP, was actually run in 2.5 minutes within Selenium. Then let's look at my whole thing, see how it goes. So we started with a sharp-based framework, and that was language chosen by the client itself. Now then, it took us 3 months. We were not too much experienced in Selenium at that time. There were hiccups. Initially, we had to learn a lot of things. We had to code for a lot of things. We went to do the final demo with the client of all the converted test cases. On the machine, we were able to run the test suite within 20 minutes. Now compare that to 3 hours that we had done earlier. So it is 89% faster than QTP, and that too with the same single machine. Of course, we spent extra 3 months of effort on that. But if I look at 20 minutes, which means as soon as the development gives me a build, within 20 minutes I can certify that. Times when I have false failures, another 20 minutes to rerun anything that has failed, and just to make sure that things are actually working. And later execution times, that means you have a lot more time to do the analysis part. You can get the feedback faster to the development team. You can the rate at which you can make your deployments to production, and you can reduce your life cycle for the whole for the testing phase much more compared to what might have been possible with QTP without more hardware investment. So I would actually like to hand over to Abhijit, who will be talking about Sauce Labs, and we'll be looking at when not to use Selenium, and we have a small demo also for you, and we'll then go into Q&A. So over to you.
Hello everybody, this is Abhijit Pendial. I'm an engineer at Sauce Labs, and I've been involved in the QA and automation space for quite a few years. And that a great introduction to Selenium and highlighting how it's proving to be an effective tool in addressing the functional testing needs in a continuous integration environment for automating and testing web applications. I wanted to introduce you to Appium. Appium is a similar open source test automation framework for automating any modality of a mobile application, such as a native application, a hybrid, or a mobile web application, right? And Appium is based on the same WebDriver technology as Selenium is. It has client bindings, just like Selenium, for all the major languages out there, whether it be Java, PHP, JavaScript, or Python, or you may name, right? So how it works is that it acts as a WebDriver interface or front end for the two major mobile products out there, namely Android and iOS. Essentially, using Appium, you're able to create a cross-platform test suite that will operate on either of these platforms, right? And not only using Appium enables code reuse, but also, just like Selenium, allows you to scale your test suite regardless of the mobile application you're testing for, right? So Selenium and Appium, giving you an overview, how does Sauce Labs fit into these two open source frameworks, right? Essentially, what we have done at Sauce Labs is build the world's largest grid for executing Selenium and Appium tests. And we contribute quite heavily to both these open source projects. In fact, the founder of Selenium is the founder of Sauce Labs, and some of the co-developers of the Appium effort are part of the Sauce Labs team. So we are really working hard to integrate both of these open source platforms within our cloud architecture. Right. So back to what Tarun alluded in his cloud execution slide, and subsequently after, the way a local or a traditional Selenium grid has worked is that there is a script that has certain Selenium or Selenium logic, which means filling an application URL or clicking on an element or inserting a text in a text box, you'll have a script which will talk to a local Selenium server, which will then drive that logic of the test on your application within a particular node or a machine set up in your network. And the machine will have the browser and OS combination that you want to run your test on. So you want to run your application test on 8 with IE10, you'll have that machine set up. Now, if you want to add Chrome 35 on Windows 8, sure, you could add the Chrome browser to that machine. But what if you wanted to test on Linux with several versions of Chrome and Firefox and IE, and also on Mac OS, right? So as you can imagine, you have to add these machines and let the Selenium server drive those tests. Not only will this add to the cost of managing this infrastructure, but also the complexity in ensuring that any errors that you come across are not related to your Selenium configuration, right? So now, in case you want to debug your test, you're not only looking at the logic of your script, but also how your application has been coded. But third component is whether your Selenium configuration is optimum or not, right? And Sauce Labs essentially solves this pain point for you. What we have done is that your logic or your script and your test cases reside where they do, whether they're on a developer's laptop or hosted on a cloud solution like GitHub or Bitbucket. And application still resides where it does. It could be a public-facing application, or it could be a QA or staging application residing behind a firewall. Right? Those two components of this workflow do not change. But Sauce Labs has taken the Selenium backend configuration and put it in the cloud. So now you're completely immune to setting up this configuration. All you now have to do is point your scripts to run on Sauce Labs, and then Sauce Labs will 15 new virtual machines with the browser and OS combination, or even a mobile platform of your choice, run the test on that machine, and then give you some relevant test assets to debug in case you run into failures. The advantage is that you have close to 470 plus browser and OS configurations, including mobile platforms to choose from. And the reason we add plus to that number is because this number constantly grows and keep growing as new versions and new platforms are available on the market. To give you context, when iOS 8.1 came out, that was available and supported in Sauce Labs within a week. So testing public-facing applications is pretty easy to test. You just point within your Selenium test, you'll point to that application and your browser will fetch that URL, right? But what you want to test an internal-facing application, and Sauce Labs has created a tool called Sauce Connect that allows you to do to run a Selenium test on Sauce Labs the way you would test a public application, right? It's a very simple tool that once you give access to application, you're able to iterate through the logic of your test. And Sauce Labs, essentially you're bridging the gap between getting the code and then deploying the code. In the current software development lifecycle, most of the teams are starting to go consistently look at a CI or a continuous delivery kind of a testing or deployment framework to achieve velocity in not only your software development, but also to produce quality code, right? And Sauce Labs fits in right within that functional testing piece to optimize your application across multiple browser and OS combinations, including mobile platforms, thereby achieving effective cross-browser coverage for application. So just the Sauce Labs platform allows you to not only scale your tests from running your test on one platform or one test sequentially, but running thousands of tests concurrently in the same amount of test or same amount of time one test would take, right? But also, you're able to, Sauce Labs provides test assets such as videos, screenshots, and logs that act as additional debugging tools to address any failures you may come across and effectively get them before you push code. All right. With that, Sauce Labs, I just want to turn things over to Tarun and take it from there.
So let's just look at a small demo we have created for this particular webinar. It's based on a WordPress installation. I'll be showing you how we execute and results directly in Sauce. So I think my screen right now, it may take few minutes for it appear in front of all of you. So I'll just wait a few seconds. Is a remote machine where we have kept our test suite for this demo. And you can see this is my Labs account.
Christina, we're not yet seeing your desktop.
Yeah. Okay. Showing it over as let me just a second.
Yeah, getting confirmation that we are not seeing your desktop. It's showing as just a teal screen.
Okay, stop and start it again, so that might help. When you see it?
Yeah, taking a look. If we don't see it, we may have to just move on, or we may. You know, we're still not seeing it. So, are you prepared to, or should we move on to the slide?
Let's Selenium script, the same one you were going to run on Sauce Labs. I think that will be a good good light into how a Selenium script operates and runs on Sauce.
Yeah, with our screen as you share your screen. Yes.
Sorry about that, folks. When you're doing a webinar, you do 20, and then the 21st, you'll always run into a snack. That's the law of averages. But just to showcase how a simple Selenium script is developed and then run, I have a script here that just simply goes to google.com and then searches for Sauce Labs. And that's just part of the majority of the code is setting up the Selenium piece of it in this script. But of course, when you're going to be adding additional logic to your Selenium script, the more page element executions that you add to your script, the longer your script will be, right? But for now, just to highlight some of the main pieces of how a Selenium script works is that right now I have this logic Selenium in Ruby, in fact, and I'm importing the relevant Ruby library for Selenium. If you'd be using Java, you would import the client binding for Java. In case of Python, you would be doing so. mentioned and I also highlighted was Selenium is based on the WebDriver technology, right? And that WebDriver protocol takes on a concept of desired capabilities. And those capabilities are highlighted these line items here, right? Essentially what I'm doing is taking my Selenium to run on the browser and OS configuration of my choice. And I'm also adding a name to my test case, right? So once I add, not only can I specify the platforms that I want to run my Selenium script on, but also additional things such as sending pass or fail metrics, as well as tagging my tests, right? If you would set up a Selenium suite locally, you would be pointing the remote WebDriver or the WebDriver URL of the Selenium or the URL object of the WebDriver object to a local Selenium server. But in this case, I'm pointing the parameter to Sauce Labs, right? I'm just passing my Sauce username and credentials and then asking it to connect to the Sauce REST API to run this test on Sauce, right? This is how the script looks in Ruby, but the syntax may change, but the logic of the script will look exactly the same in any other language you may call. I'm also, since on my simple test of going to google.com and searching for Sauce Lab, in parallel on saucelabs.com, I'm also importing the relevant parallel library allows me to do so. In Ruby's case, I'm using the Peach gem, but for different frameworks, parallelization or thread counts are set up in various ways. So, but no matter what platform or what you use, you're not only able to script using Selenium, but also achieve concurrency in running your tests on Sauce, thereby reducing the test time dramatically. Right. So let's run this test. Move to Sauce and say I have a few windows on Sauce Lab on my browser here. We'll navigate to saucelabs.com. Log in. The Sauce Labs homepage, or as we call it, the jobs page, and all the jobs or tests that or Selenium scripts that you run on Sauce show up in this nice grid structure here, giving you a quick overview of the environment you ran that test in, but also how long it took. Now, a very simple script that I ran, and what we built, the script again, and run one more time so that we can see spawn in parallel on saucelabs.com, right? And what we are doing in our cloud is provisioning pristine new virtual machines that have never been used before by any tester, right? And this test on that configuration of the choice outlined in the script, right? Our test was very small, and so by the time we get there, it's over. But as you can see, after the test execution, Sauce Labs creates a video of the entire session for you. Now that screenshot for each of the page element executions that happen within your script, just going to google.com or searching for Sauce, right? And these are all Selenium commands that were passed on to us within your script, right? And you saw that that script was built from my laptop. I could have had the script hosted on some cloud solution like GitHub and then run it using a continuous integration tool like Jenkins or Travis or Circle CI, and as part of a build, and those with 2 or even thousands would spawn the same exact way on Sauce Labs and you access to those debugging assets like screenshots, videos, and
go ahead, Tarun, and pass back over to you.
Thanks, Chris. So we already had looked at the demo. When would you actually not look at choosing Selenium? So let's say if your application is not web or mobile, definitely Selenium is not the tool for you. You should look at QTP or template or even something else. If you do not love open source, because there are a lot of I've heard few companies where they not prefer using open source software. They prefer buying software from particular vendors. Also, in case you prefer GUI-based tools which allow you to create, manage, execute test cases. Now there are not a lot of things that are available right now, as you have tools like QC, which lets you manage everything at one place. But then you have to pay at the cost of the execution speeds, and you also have to pay with more hardware and more license cost also for that. So looking at the pre-webinar QA, so I selected few questions that I thought would be important to answer. Let me just go through a few of them. We use Selenium on Windows-based application. So the answer is just let me back. Yeah. So the answer is no. Selenium has no support, but Selenium itself supports a lot of languages, so we can always mix it with other solutions that are available, like securely Audit. You have Microsoft coded UI. Whenever you are trying to mix and match browsers with the native stuff, you can always integrate these things. Because one question: will Selenium remain open source? It's possible that it becomes paid, so that is not gonna happen in future at all. It started as an open source tool. It will always remain as an open source tool. How much programming knowledge is required? What is the learning of if somebody already knows QTP? So you require basic HTML, XPath, and CSS knowledge, and language that you choose from. So let's say if you choose PHP, then you need PHP experience. It's not a very steep learning curve, but it is not as easy as QTP would be. But that is where things get better also for Selenium, because when you start learning about more technology like XPath, CSS, you also become a better automation tester as well. You can create better things, you can create better frameworks. So really remove QTP or UFT. So see, this webinar was not a question about removing QTP. It is more about letting you know what you should choose based on different factors of cost and benefits from different tools. Have a decent development team, or can you manage having developers, or outsource it to a company and get it managed for you? Or you prefer that manual testers on your side do it? There are a lot of factors to be considered, and there is it's not that we are trying to demote or that QTP is bad. We are just trying to give you another perspective that Selenium is also an option. So question: does Selenium solve some of the QTP problems? No, in fact, it may add more problems to your list because you have to do a lot more work initially that you might have to do in QTP. But once you start learning things, you can do a lot more than you might have done in QTP itself. Important question that I felt was when making a decision, is skill level of the Q team considered? Like people who are not across, who are not progress. will be able to actually create test cases. Now, companies they created in such a way that the amount of knowledge required the QA team to use the framework would be quite lesser in terms of development language. Learn how to integrate stuff or how to use particular methods and the framework. So it depends on the way you get your framework developed. Your QA team would be able to or not. Selenium being an open source tool, there is no dedicated support to it. So how clients rely on this? That's a trade-off with any open source solution. You can't, if somebody has created an open source tool, you cannot go and force him to make an update for you. But with many contributors, there are better chances of getting things fixed, and there are at times where you yourself might have to look into the source code, or you might want to somebody to look into that. But with those source tools like HP, we had been in situations where they have not been able to solve our problem within the same version and asked us to upgrade enterprise-wide to the next version, which is not a solution for us. So it's not that having a paid tool means you will get solutions to everything. But of course, with open source tools, there is a trade-off, but you have access to the source code. So in case you want to get modified from somebody else, you can get that done too. Sometimes even the paid tools cannot help. There is one issue that's running on IE11 right now, and a lot of companies which are using IE11 in the background, those are running paid tools, but they are now blocked because of a change that Microsoft made. So on what kind of issues are raised and whether there are solutions even a company that's developed the tool can provide you or not. So, one of the questions was, what are the typical barriers that may prevent an organization to move towards Selenium? So existing investment into paid solutions like QTP, there are companies who may have already spent millions of dollars in QTP. For them to question themselves whether they should look at moving Selenium, would questioning whether they did the right thing or not. It may look like a big question, but a smaller proof of concept, look at the benefits that you get out of it, and it does not need to be a huge scale migration. It has start small, and you can see benefits, and as a better option for then you can always do the transformation over years. It does not have to be scrape everything that you're doing in QTP right now and get everything up in Selenium. Thing for us coming from QTP to Selenium. So when we were creating exit-based framework for this conversion, we had a hard time. Reason being, there was a lot of effort that we had to spend on methods that are readily available to us in Qt. So we had to create classes for web tables. We had to create multiple methods to be able to do things which was a simple method in QTP. So initially a challenge, but it is something that we're seeing the results that we could post. Open it to Q&A. Christina is, if anything specific, I know we are already above time. So in anything more you want me to answer else, we'll take most of the questions offline or answer them through our blog later.
Yeah, definitely. To the audience, we are planning on doing a post-webinar blog post that's going to address a handful of the common theme questions that we got during this webcast, similar to what Tarun just walked through. So in the interest of us running a bit over, I think we will lean towards doing that. So we will be sending these recording and slides out. I will also include a link to the Sauce Labs blog where you will be able to find those post Q&A questions. And if you do have a very specific question that you'd like us to address, you can write us at webinar@saucelabs.com. Hopefully we did get to most of those questions in these last two slides here, and I think actually we did cover quite a few of them. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us and to both of our presenters. If you have any questions, again, just please reach out to us at webinar@saucelabs.com, and I will forward those to the correct printers and to people. So thank you so much. Bye.